Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Shivan, that's the first time you've done that kirtan that I've seen. That was amazing.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
You know what my feeling was at the end? You know what my feeling was at the end?
What?
You know what my reaction to that kirtan was?
What?
I didn't want it to end. I wanted to keep going and going. The whole time, 1 hour. You're like a pro. You've been doing it for 20 years. So cool and calm and collected. Man, is there ice water running in your veins?
I don't know.
When they take your temperature, is it like below zero? That's great. So today is I suppose some of our regulars are probably listening to different programs on the GBC SBT. Just for your information, if you're tuning in, like William from Los Angeles and others on Facebook, every Krishna temple will be having a big celebration today, at least in America. I think India, they would have had it already, I think, yesterday. So because it's a celebration of Gaur Purnima, the appearance day of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So if you're from Los Angeles, there'll be celebrations in Laguna Beach Temple, Culver City Temple, Placentia Temple. Everybody's going to be celebrating the appearance day of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's second in importance only to Janmashtami, the appearance day of Lord Sri Krishna. We had a bit of a observance last night at the Salt Lake Temple, kind of a warm-up. And tonight at 6 o'clock at the Salt Lake Temple, there'll be a gala celebration with a bathing ceremony, kirtan, and a talk by Amrita Sundari. And we'll also celebrate here in Spanish Fork at 5 o'clock. So you have the option of coming in person to the Spanish Fork Temple at 5 o'clock today, the Salt Lake City Temple at 6 o'clock today, or any of the other Krishna temples in America, which will all be combining their normal Sunday feast with the celebration of Gaur Purnima, or you can watch us online also, either here or in Salt Lake City while we celebrate as well. We thought we normally go along the Bhagavatam verse by verse, and in the normal course of things, we'd be on I think I'm right, check me if I'm wrong, Kapil, the 24th verse of the second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam. But before we do that, just inquire from everybody whether they have a realization or a story, something to do with Lord Chaitanya that they'd like to share. Okay, Shivan is first in every category today.
Prabhuji, this is Sivena Sena. Sivena Sena. Yes, I believe that's the name. This person has a dog, Sivenanand Sena, and he makes him eat very well. He takes care of the dog very well. And one day he wants to go to cross the Ganges, and with his dog, the boat person is not letting the dog come in. And the Sivananand pays him double the price for two people, and then he crossed the Ganges and gets a house, and Sivananand goes to work, and The dog is at the home with the servant. The servant doesn't give the dog food, he forgets, and the dog runs away. The dog runs away, and then Sivananand sends a few people to search for the dog. They couldn't find the dog, um, so he goes to Jagannath Puri um, to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he sees the dog with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, with his own smile, um, is like telling the dog to say, Krishna, Krishna, Rama, Rama, Hari, Hari. And the dog is saying that, and all of the devotees and Sivananand Sena, it gets very surprised by the dog saying, Krishna, Krishna, Rama, Rama, Hari, Hari. And sitting in that way, Sivananand Swami takes touches the feet of the dog, and then goes to sleep. And then the dog leaves his body and makes his soul go to Vaikuntha. And yeah, that's the story.
You're on mute, Charu Prabhu.
Want to distract from the story there. Very comprehensive explanation of the story. There's also another reference to dog as well when I think it's is it Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's son-in-law? Sarvabhauma is feeding Lord Chaitanya, and his son-in-law comes in and makes this offensive comment that this sannyasi is eating more than 10 men. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya picks up a stick and goes chasing him, beating him all through the town. Lord Chaitanya was just laughing back at Sarvabhauma's house. And then when Sarvabhauma returned, Sarvabhauma just said, Lord, Lord, please forgive me, this rascal, my son-in-law. And Lord Chaitanya was just laughing. He said, anybody in your household is dear to me, even your dog. He says, I will not accept offenses from anybody who lives in your household, even your dog, Kukura. There's two dog stories.
So the story I decided to go with was also, it was pretty much inspired by your talk last night, where I just wanted to get some more information about Gaur Purnima itself. So I stumbled upon a story which in which Krishna is going to Rukmani's house, and Narada Muni, he knows that Kali Yuga is about to come, so he also wants to meet Krishna to discuss how they will go about working in the Kali Yuga. So um, as soon as Krishna arrives at Rukmani's house, Rukmani preparations has already had a lot of saintly people over there that are chanting mantras. She had all of her servants arrange the palace in a very, very decorative manner. And yet, as soon as Krishna comes, she starts crying. And Krishna asks, Why are you crying? Did one of the saints scold you? Did your servants disobey you? Have the children come up with some mischief? And she says, No, it's nothing like that. It's only something Radharani would understand. And he says, What is the issue? And she says that you've come, but now I'm worried that you will leave. So unless you promise me that you will never leave, I will not stop crying. So while Krishna is trying to pacify her, Narada Muni shows up, and Krishna gets kind of happy. He says to distract Rukmini, he's like, "Oh, Gurudev, Gurudev, Gurudev," and he goes to Narada Muni and he starts bathing um, his feet, and he sits him on the Guru Asan and starts, just serving him. And he asks, or I believe Narada Muni asks Rukmini why she was crying, and she tells him, and Narad Muni says that this is a sign that Kali Yuga is coming, because attachment has started to become so strong that we're not willing to let go of things. And so he says to Krishna, he says um, that in the story you told me that he said that only Radharani would understand this mood, this devotion. And so he says that that's a you must come in Kali Yuga in the mood of Radharani. and Krishna agrees to his Gurudev, and so that's why Narada Muni goes all through all the loks and he spreads the word that Krishna is going to come as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and so you need to go and you need to go help him. So that's why people like Devas come as his father and etc.
That was great. Fantastic. That was the exact story I was going to share too.
Oh no.
I can add one thing. It's from a book called Chaitanya Mangala, written by Srila Lochan Das Thakur.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine. It makes me think of another story where Krishna was just joking with Rukmini one day, and he said to her, just in a joking mood to see how she would react, he said, so many princes wanted to marry you, Kshatriyas, blue-blooded, aristocratic Kshatriyas, Sisupal and others. And you got me, nobody knows who I am, what caste I'm from. And if you have any, second thoughts or any regrets, I'll give you leave to go and, choose again someone for your spouse. And just hearing this, Krishna wasn't serious, but he just wanted to see how attached Rukmini was to him. And as soon as she heard this, she fainted. Said she perspired, so her body lost so much water in just a few moments that the bangles slipped off of her wrists and fell to the ground. And then it said she started to faint away, falling just like a bamboo that an elephant is uprooted and throws to one side. It said that not only Rukmini but Sahasra Chintamani Pakara Sadmashu Kalpavriksha Lakshmi Vridisu Surabhiya Bipalyantam. Sahasra Lakshmi, not only Rukmini but thousands and thousands of goddesses of fortune cannot leave Krishna's lotus feet for even a moment. Krishna wants to understand that attachment. The very thought of being separated from Krishna is the undoing, completely undoes the gopis, the goddesses of fortune. Krishna wants to understand how it is that the thought of living without him is intolerable. And they all say that the expert in that field is Radharani. If you want to understand separation, then you have to know the mind of Radharani. That's why Lord Chaitanya, one of the reasons Lord Chaitanya descended in the golden color, in the mood of Radharani, is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, Dad, you have to come after your two sons. What are you going to do to top their stories?
So it's a very hard act to follow, I would say. So instead of a story, as we discussed last evening, and you said in your talk that there are millions and millions of incarnations. But among all those incarnations, the most merciful is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So if you ask someone who is God, people may give you various answers. And once you understand that, okay, who is God? Why do we worship? And what is the motivation? And for the motivations, people could have different answers altogether. One might say love, the others may say protection, devotion, service. But if we were to summarize and combine all these words, I think it's mercy. In Bhagavad Gita, I think one of the famous verses is Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya dushkritam. And that's what Krishna says. But if we see the same verse in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's perspective, it is Paritranaya sadhunam and Paritranaya dushkritam. He was so merciful. And there are numerous examples, Jagai, Madai, like there are a lot of examples that says that he was merciful even to the people who are full of ignorance. And I think that could be a good segue for the verse that we are going to talk. So I'll keep the other part for our later discussion. But I think that's the one thing that I love. And the second part of that same shloka says, Dharma sanstapnastai. And for this yuga, the dharma is chanting. So that's what I want to share.
Very nice. I never thought of that. Parijnaya sadhanam, parijnaya duskritam.
I won't take the credit of it. It came from like years ago. Radhikaran Prabhu, he was here on a day of Gaur Purnima, and that's where he quoted. But it's resonated well, and I think it's imprinted on my memory.
Someone said, we heard it a few times recently, that in the Satya Yuga, the demons and the devotees lived on different planets. And in the Treta Yuga, they lived in different parts of the city. What was it? No, they lived in different countries. In the Treta Yuga, they lived in different countries. Ram lived in Ayodhya, and the demons lived in Dandakaranya. And then in the next Yuga, they lived in the same city, but it was in different parts of the city. But in the Kali Yuga, the demons and devotees live in the same person. They live in the same body. So if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was going to apply the same verse for Itanaya Sadam Vinasita Duskritam in the Kali Yuga, there are no clear-cut sadhus. There's no sadhus. There's just mixed. There's just people with a lot of demonic qualities, and the result would be, it would, if Lord Chaitanya were to discriminate between devotees and demons, it would be vinasha duskritam vinasha sadhunam.
Inside joke.
Lord Nityananda specifically told him, put away your Sudarshan, holster your Sudarshan, because if you're going to kill all the demons, you'd kill everybody. You'd be killing everybody, because everybody has some demonism in them in the Kali Yuga age. So instead, he's giving everyone the benefit of the doubt. It said, after delivering Jagai and Vadai, Lord Chaitanya promised to accept anybody, irrespective of caste or creed, as long as after initiation they would not commit sinful activities again. Yata kanchanam yati kamsam rasham tata dikshad vidane dvijatvam jayatenanam. The effect of initiation by a bona fide spiritual master is that just like bell metal becomes transformed into gold by alchemy, similarly, one's sinful activities are destroyed, and then one has a new lease on life. One has a fresh start. So as long as one doesn't return to one's old sinful activities, one gets liberation immediately upon getting initiation from a bona fide spiritual master in the line of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Prabhupada used to say, all my disciples are on the platform of immortality. As long as they follow the four Rigveda principles and chant 16 rounds, they're immortal. But if they stop, then they drop. What do they say? They fall off the wagon. They fall off the wagon, and then they become mortal again. Nice insight. Rob, based on what you've learned about Lord Chaitanya recently, do you have any comments relating to the golden avatar at all?
Thank you, Prabhuji. So you'd shared the story last night of on Lord Chaitanya's appearance day, everyone was going into the Ganga and praising Krishna and chanting Hare Krishna and Hari Bol. Something that I learned from Mathu Prabhu, I was able to attend one of his kirtans. He spoke about Lord Chaitanya, and he said that even the non-believers, in the act of mocking the devotees, were chanting, "Oh, Hare Krishna," in like a mocking sense. So it was like they were actually tricked into also chanting and praising Krishna, even though they did it in a mocking way. And so it was like everyone was chanting, whether they were devotees of Krishna or not. And I thought that was, kind of ironic and funny and humorous, but also very powerful into the ways that Krishna can influence anyone if he chooses to.
Did he also mention that when that would happen, Lord Chaitanya would put his hands over his ears?
No, he did not. This was on his appearance day, so he hadn't. He was still an infant, I suppose.
Okay. Because they used to mockingly shout Hare Krishna, and then he would put his hands over his ears, pretending that that bothered him. And of course, if someone's goading you and they think that they're being successful, then they'll do it even more intensely. They'll ratchet it up. And so Lord Chaitanya gave the impression that they were getting to him, that it was disturbing him, and that he wanted to block out the sound of the holy names of Krishna. So he put his hands over his ears, and then that had the result of making the people shout even twice as loud. Whatever Lord Chaitanya did, even from the moment of his birth, it was to promote Harinama Sri Krishna Sankirtan. Even when he was born, it was time of a lunar eclipse. People were taking their baths in the Ganges, and as was the custom, everybody all over India was chanting, Haribo, 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 Haribo. That was foretelling his future mission. Thanks for sharing that, Rob. Does everyone agree that Rob looks very handsome with his new haircut?
Yes. Yes.
He's-
The haircut, the foreground, and the most importantly is the background. Oh, love the picture. If you see the picture behind on the wall, both the pictures, the one on the wall as well as the one on your side wall.
I can't see the one on the sidewall that well. What's that one?
That's a picture of me and my son right after he was born.
Oh, okay.
Amazing picture.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Nice.
Now we turn to George Govinda
That's the best.
lately. Govinda just finished a trial, a 5-day trial, which went from 9 in the morning till 5 at night. He says it was like a battle, just a constant battle. And Friday night after it was all over, he went to bed at 6:30, and he didn't wake up till 6:30 in the morning. He slept for 12 straight hours. And the jury's out. The judge is making her decision this weekend. And any idea when she'll come through with her verdict?
Oh, it will be it'll be several weeks. We have to give the judge our suggested ruling with detailed factual findings and conclusions of law. And after she gets those, and that probably won't be for a month that we have to give those, because we have to get the transcript of the trial first so we can plug in all of the references. Then she'll sit back and cut and paste what the lawyers have submitted and make her ruling. So maybe in a month, maybe in 6 weeks. By then, no one will care anymore. There's no drama doing it this way. It's not like going in and trying the case in front of a live jury. This is just in front of a judge, and then sitting, waiting with bated breath to see how the judge is going to rule. It's very sort of business-like and takes a little bit of the drama out. I think this would be a good occupation for Ishan, because I am not a natural debater. I don't really even like to talk very much. And but why I chose this particular way to make a living, I don't know. But if you like to debate, you'll be debating through the whole trial. You're listening to every single word. And if the other lawyer says something that's objectionable in one of his questions, you have to object and be prepared to debate why it's objectionable. And there's all kinds of arguments that come up in the course of it. So it is very stimulating and challenging in that way. But really, it's like Charu and I were talking about this morning. It's like Arjuna going into battle in a very real way, but the battle is not fought with weapons, physical weapons to physically hurt. It's all about winning arguments. You're just trying to win arguments all along. And it was a big investment of my time and energy. And I did my best to remain Krishna conscious through the whole process. And that was actually a wonderful blessing because I never really experienced any great anxiety. Whereas in trials past, it has been much different from that. I haven't had a big trial since I've been a devotee, and this was five full days of transcendental, legal, logistical fun. Nice to be back with the devotees.
George / Govinda was telling me this morning at Mangalarti in Salt Lake City that he was pretty much able to chant the whole time, and at least in the back of his mind, even when he was hard pressed to come up with an answer to something that the opponents had put up. He was able to keep his cool, keep a bit of distance, and continue to chant even while his mind was going at 90 miles an hour to answer his opponents. So that's certainly a sign of success. Krishna says to Arjuna, Tajmad Sarvashu Kalashu Mamanushmana. Always think of me, always remember me. At the same time, don't on account of chanting and remembering, don't give up your duty. He says, in the midst of your duty, whether it be in the middle of a trial, in the middle of a battle, Krishna says, Mamanushmana Shah, always remember me, always chant my holy names. And in this way, you'll come to me, he assures us. Today is Gaur Purnima, as you know, and you're up as far as something about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Govinda, share.
Well, I have been reading for about 3 months now, teachings of Lord Chaitanya. I'm into the last 50 pages, and there isn't anything that particularly jumps to mind, but I've just finished the interactions that the Lord had with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and I think of that, and I also think of just prior to that in teachings of Lord Chaitanya, when Lord Chaitanya met with Prakashananda up in near Benares. And when he has his initial encounter with both of these celebrated intellectual leaders who were Mayavadis, I think I may get the facts on this not exactly right, but Lord Chaitanya sits and listens very, very patiently, I think in each case for about a week, without saying anything. And he knows everything, and he doesn't try to interrupt. He doesn't at any point ever try to demonstrate that he's superior by doing anything other than after having given full audience to this entire argument. And I can tell you that when someone else is making the opposing argument and they say something that's wrong, there's such an urge to just want to jump in. And yet the rules of the game are you have to wait till everything is concluded. So can you imagine waiting for 7 days of hearing the opposing argument and then having to be the one to respond to that? I just think that illustrates, and of course, in both cases, both become converted and very dedicated, loyal disciples of Lord Chaitanya. It illustrates tremendous patience and composure, and like to be a candle without any wind, just really untouchable by any outside stimulus. Atmarama, completely self-sufficient, self-satisfied, completely in control, regardless of what the circumstances are. That would be, as I think of it, the perfect trial lawyer, never rattled in any way. Just keep coming at me, because I know I have the knowledge. And anyway, there's so much to say about Lord Chaitanya. That was one thing that was very striking, actually, that I was thinking about this morning, his grace, complete grace, composure, and compassion under fire. Haribol.
The verse is Yata Dipo Nivatashto Nengate Sopama Yata Yogasha Yonjasha. It says that just as a lamp in a windless place doesn't waver, so the mind fixed steady on the transcendent self. I think when we interrupt, I always tell my wife, I say, "Bye, Bobby, I'm so sorry. Did the beginning of my sentence interrupt them? How does it go? Did the beginning of my sentence interrupt the middle of yours?" Is that how it goes? I'm so sorry that the middle of my sentence interrupted the beginning of yours. That's how it goes. I'm so sorry that the middle of my sentences interrupted the beginning of yours. Personally, this is a running battle my wife and I have had for 50 years. You know, I don't know if she got it from me. I rather think not. I don't think I interrupt people. I don't think I do it. I know that there's a strong urge in most cases, just like you said, but I don't think I do it so badly. She does it constantly, and it's just a running source of tension between us. And I believe that when I feel this strong urge to interrupt someone, it's due to one of two reasons, or maybe a little of both. One is I'm actually afraid at some level that they'll convince me. If I let them continue talking, I'll have to go to all the trouble of revising my own premises, and I'm too lazy to do that. So one possibility is that you feel threatened by the cogency of their arguments, and you don't want to let them finish, because then you might actually have a new realization. You might have to have a new insight that then you'll have to take the trouble of assimilating. I think that's one reason why we jump in. Because we're afraid on some level that they'll share something valuable with us, that we'll actually have to take in something valuable that ultimately will be for our benefit. But as in the case when we go up to a higher level, it's sometimes a little bit painful, a little bit uncomfortable, and we try to avoid the discomfort. And so we jump in and we interrupt people right in the middle of their thought and in the middle of their sentence. Another reason I know why I get a tremendous urge to jump in is because I think that I have something so important to say. It's so important. It's so crucial. It's so earth-shaking that this person really needs to hear it. And I need to say it right now before they finish. Why? Because I might forget it.
That important.
If I wait till they finish their sentence or their train of thought, this tremendously important, earth-shaking thought that I have, it might have just gone out. You see, I might have forget it. And then it never occurs to me to think, well, if it's that important, why would you forget it? Why couldn't you just sit on it until he finishes and then bring it out? So either way, I think the impulse to interrupt is due to insecurity. And Lord Chaitanya is the least insecure person ever. He's Vedas cha sarvayaham Veda Vedanta Creed eva vid eva jaham. He is the knower of the Vedas, the compiler of the Vedas, the object of the Vedas. He's the repository of all knowledge. And so there's no question of any scrap of knowledge being elusive. There's no question of his forgetting. There's no question of his being necessarily swayed by another's argument. He is the definition. He is the embodiment of the absolute truth, and therefore he is unshakable. As a scholar, even in his teens, none of the other scholars in Navadvip was a big intellectual center. There were many, many scholars, and they were all scared to death of Nimai Pandit. The reason they were scared to death of him was that not only would he defeat them, he would let them give their whole argument to the very best of their ability without interrupting, as you said, and then he would defeat them, which was okay. I mean, that's acceptable. But then he would go back to their original argument, and then he would defeat his refutation of their argument, which would be just too much for any scholar's ego to be deflated to that extent. It's just intolerable. And so when Lord Chaitanya, known as Nimai Pandit, would walk down the street, every other scholar would run and hide. But that didn't stop them from pushing him forward when the Kashmiri Pandit came to town. That story we told last night about how Lord Chaitanya defeated the greatest Pandit in all of India. Oh, everybody shared something precious, and we appreciate it. Some of the comments, Jai Shri Radhe, say thank God for Prabhupada, thank God for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we've had a message from William and Ali shared with us they lost a dear friend named Emily. She was 60 years old and had been a devotee of Krishna for 2 years down there in Los Angeles. So hopefully she was chanting the names of Krishna at the time of leaving her material body. And if it was on today, Gaur Purnima, what a good day to leave the body. It is said that when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left the planet and went back to the spiritual world, he took all the souls, every single soul that had been on the planet, he gave them all liberation. He took them all back to home, back to Godhead. Therefore, he is known as Namo Mahabharanaya Krishna Prema. No one more merciful than the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his devotional form as Lord Chaitanya. We have a Haribo from Nicole Wagner. She asked me to pass on my pranams to the lovely Bhai Bobby. She used to be here at the radio station when we first acquired the radio station. She used to be one of our on-air DJs back in 1981, 1982. I have many fond memories of Nicole. Thank you for checking in. Radhe Shyam from Tooele. Kapil has said that he's going to tie in today's verse with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So let's give it over to Kapil. We're on the 24th verse in the 2nd chapter, the 1st canto of Srimad Bhagavatam.
So you pressure, mercy. So let's try.
Well, at least we promise we won't interrupt you.
The middle of your sentence. Hari bol.
There you go.
पार्थिवात दारुण्य धूम तस्मात् अग्नित्रय मय तमस्तु रजय तस्मात् सत्वम यत् ब्रह्म darshanam. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Firewood is a transformation of earth, but smoke is better than the raw wood, and fire is still better. For by fire, we can derive the benefits of superior knowledge through Vedic sacrifices. Similarly, passion, which is rajas, is better than ignorance, which is tamas. But goodness, which is sattva, is best because by goodness one can come to realize the absolute truth. I'll just read one short paragraph of the purport and then we can begin our discussion. Purport. As explained above, one can get release from the conditioned life of material existence by devotional service to the personality of Godhead. It is further comprehended herein that one has to rise to the platform of the mode of goodness, which is sattva, so that one can be eligible for the devotional service of the Lord. But if there are impediments on the progressive path, anyone, even from the platform of tamas, can gradually rise to the sattva platform by the expert direction of the spiritual master. Sincere candidates must therefore approach an expert spiritual master for such a progressive march, and the bona fide expert spiritual master is competent to direct a disciple from any stage of life, tamas, rajas, or sattva. That itself, this purport itself, is an amazing example of mercy. That don't worry, even though, as Charu Prabhu we discussed in the past, that being in the mode of goodness serves as a launching pad to transcend and to aspire to achieve the pure devotional service or the love. But here, Prabhupada made it very easy. And Charu Prabhu, this comes from one of your morning Bhagavatam classes. You gave this example of 2002 when Salt Lake hosted the Winter Olympics. And the theme was light the flame within. And it is such a profound analogy because often we try to find the light outside, forgetting the source that resides in all of us. And then you continue with the example where you said that for you to ignite that flame which is within you, you need an external source that can help you ignite the spark. We all have the spark, we just need someone to help ignite that. And in our previous classes, we talked about the parampara, that the spark of knowledge will come from the disciplic succession. And that's where Prabhupada has mentioned that even if you are in one of these three modes, be it the ignorance, the passion, or goodness, with the mercy of your spiritual master, one can ignite that spark. So you also gave a couple of examples, and I think that goes well with what we are trying to understand today, is the prison house analogy that we discussed the previous Sunday. That if we compare this Kali Yuga, one could be a class C prisoner, a class B prisoner, or a class A prisoner, respectively in the mode of ignorance, passion, and goodness. But in our tradition, the tradition that comes from Mahaprabhu, that tradition which is based on the holy names of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. That is the fourth class, which is the free citizen class. And that's what Prabhupada says, that only bhakti has the potency to break these barriers. And it is so simple, it's easy, as we discussed in our previous classes. I'll conclude by giving an example, Charu Prabhu, that came from one of your other lectures, where Prabhupada, he was explaining the classes within the society, the Varnashram, and there was someone in the audience in a very challenging, condescending tone. The person asked Prabhupada, Swamiji, which class do you belong? Right? And Charu, you gave the example, hearing from people who were present and from the tapes, that there was a tear that came out from Prabhupada's eyes. And he said that we belong to the fifth class, the class that serves the other four class. And Prabhu, today, I need your blessings. I need blessings from George Prabhu and all the other Vaishnavas, that we get that fifth class and get this mercy to serve all others around us.
That was at a lecture at Uppsala University where someone asked during the question period, what class are you? Prabhupada described the Brahmins as first class, the Kshatriyas as second class, and so on and so forth. So the questioner, I assume, expected Prabhupada to say, we are first class, we are Brahmins. But Prabhupada said, we are, in very deep humility, he said, we are fifth class because we're serving all the other classes. And that goes to what this purport says too, that even if you're not in the mode of goodness, you're in the mode of passion, you're in the mode of ignorance, still we're here to serve you. Last night we had a nice talk, nice kirtan, nice arti, discussed Lord Chaitanya, and normally we don't entertain. I mean, some temples do, but our strategy in Utah has been to make our Saturday services in Salt Lake in the evening and Sunday to be seeker friendly, and a big part of that is to be brief. Don't prolong the service. And so we basically have 15 minutes of kirtan, half an hour talk, 15 minutes of kirtan, and then we have prasadam. And I know that Prabhupada used to take time for questions, and most devotees take time for questions. It's pretty much a hallmark of iskcon that after the talk ask for questions. But we don't actually follow that process because we want it to be short and sweet. So if someone's coming for the first time, we don't want it to drag on or for them to be uncomfortable. But what I always feel like I have to do after the 1 hour program is over and before we go for prasadam, I just feel this strong urge that questions should be there. It's foundational. It's so important that people be able to ask questions, because we're not trying to deny or repress their intellect. In fact, only after your intellect stretches and you ask questions, receive the answers, do you get a more fully expanded understanding of Krishna, and does your faith increase. So at the same time, that can be at odds with a seeker-friendly service. So I always usually announce, or it's all I can do to suppress that, please ask questions. Now is the time, Now is the time to ask questions. You come up to me now, because it's going to be a long line for the buffet anyway. So you can come up and ask questions of me or any devotee who's dressed in kurta and tilak. Or as you're sitting, I like to go around table to table to table. And I'll just go to each table. There'll be 5 or 6 people there. I say, do you have any questions about anything you heard, you saw, you smell, you tasted, or you touched? Do you have any questions? And that's really where a lot of nectar is. It's only when people open up with questions. In fact, last night we had a lot of really sweet newcomers. We had two fellows, one from, and Kapil's not only sponsored the feast last night in Salt Lake City, but he also, Ras Vilas made the announcement that anybody who doesn't have a Bhagavad Gita, Kapil is going to pay for them to have a Bhagavad Gita. So you just need to ask. So these 2 guys each had Bhagavad Gitas. One was from Ecuador, and I forget where the other was from. Really nice guys. And they were so happy to the Bhagavad Gita. And I remember talking to the one fellow, and I said, he had tilak on. And I said, you came for the first time? He said, yeah, I came for the. And so I'm like, how does he have tilak on? He came for the first time, but he's got tilak on his forehead. I mean, I couldn't. It was like he must have wondered, because usually when you have tilak on or red dot, you're not aware of it. It only might have happened a few minutes ago, but it's just something that you just don't register. If you're a new person. So he must have wondered why I kept looking at his forehead with a little quizzical look on my forehead. And how does a person who comes for the first time have tilak on? So I guess when they were doing the blessing, I guess now instead of putting the red dot, they put tilak on people. Someone told me Sundari Priya caused it to be done. And anyway, really sweet guys. There was another fellow who, during his yoga class, his yoga certification, 200 or 500 hours or whatever it was, in Boston, he was required to read the Bhagavad Gita by his teacher, who wasn't a devotee. It was a different version of the Bhagavad Gita. But he came along to our celebrations last night after having moved to Salt Lake City because of his background in reading the Bhagavad Gita. And then he got a copy from Kapil, also the Bhagavad Gita as it is. I told him about the Wisdom of the Sage podcast, which I thought he would enjoy. And he was very excited about going away and reading the Bhagavad Gita. And I said to all these guys, I said, we're here for your questions. Please ask us questions. Nothing happens. There's no light bulbs that go on or no fireworks that go up unless and until you have a question and you ask a question. So it's very, very important that give and take, question and answering occur. And why? Because through question and answering, one gets the right directions. Isn't it men? Don't they say that men have a problem when they're driving around and they're lost? Isn't it men particularly who hate to ask directions?
It's true.
Women, the wife will say, honey, pull over and ask someone. No, I'm not going to do that. I'll find my way myself. Isn't that a conversation that goes on in thousands of cars every day all over the world?
Well, I didn't realize that, but Vinita is, she's smiling and laughing. So seems it's correct.
The man is kind of like the Mayavadi, right? He's saying, anywhere I drive, we'll get there. Isn't it? Any road I take, it doesn't. I don't have to ask anybody. There's no right way, wrong way. What my way? As long as I'm behind the wheel, wherever we're going, whatever we're doing is right. Isn't that the attitude? And the woman is like the devotee. You know, it's not a process of hit or miss. It's not blind man's bluff. You know, our time is limited. This human form is very valuable. If you don't ask questions, you're wasting time and energy that you'll never get back, and you may never achieve the destination for which you're meant. So questions are very important. Now, Ishan, what would you respond if I said, it doesn't matter what kind of worship you do, it doesn't matter what you do, we'll all get there in the end. Why all this insistence? Why all this rigor? It's all good.
Well, I mean, that's the path that I took when I wanted to become like a soccer player.
Can you turn the volume up a little bit, you guys?
Yeah, sorry. So I was just saying that, like, when it comes to sports, and you're just like, well, I'll just play, like, you know, soccer with friends, and then one day I'll be earning millions of dollars and play for the biggest clubs, and that's my way, right? It's fun, it's easy, and it you know, causes success. But that's not what happens, right? There's a certain, like, set of drills you have to do every day that like all the good players do, and that's how you become a professional. And I feel like that's the same rule here, right? It's not just like whatever you feel is fun, whatever you think is best, because I mean, obviously, like, if I'm not a professional, I don't know anything about soccer, so I have to learn from somebody who does, and I have to follow the path they took, and that'll be the same thing here. You can't just go the way you want to go. You have to go the way of somebody who has already been down that path that can take you. Just like you need a driver to take you down, or like if you're ever going on across a river, you can't just take yourself across the river, right? There's always a person there that's driving the ferry that will take you across, because they've done that hundreds of times, but you've never done it, so you can't know how to do it unless they teach you or they kind of show you how and take you across with them.
Basically what they're saying is, hey, Ishan, lighten up, man, lighten up. It's wood, smoke, fire, it's all one. Why do you have to insist on fire? Wood and smoke are the same thing as fire. Chill, man.
Well, I mean, I like to see them drinking ice. Like, you can't drink ice. You have to drink.
You Hare Krishnas. Why Krishna? Why Krishna? Why not Shiva? Why not Brahma? Why not Varuna? Why not Indra? Why Krishna? It's all one. It's all the same. It's all going to get you to the same place. Why do you have to be fanatic about it?
I mean, it's just, I guess it's just like how long it takes, right? Like when like when I search something up on Google Maps, like I need to get, like, let's say I need to get to West, the school I go to. Google Maps will show you like 4 or 5 different ways to get there, but the one that it has highlighted is the fastest way to get to West. And I feel like that's the same thing here. Is sure, there's like multiple ways to get there, but the only way you know which one's the fastest is through somebody who's knowledgeable, like Siri.
I remember this song. I don't know. None of you. Maybe George. Maybe Govinda. Do you remember a group called the Lettermen?
Sure.
Do you remember the song, the MTA?
No.
The Metropolitan Transit Authority of Boston. There was a guy, he bought a ticket. He wanted to go somewhere, and he just decided to ride the MTA, the Boston. And the refrain is, did he ever return? No, he never returned, and his fate is still unlearned. He may ride forever underneath the sky, but he's the man who never returned. Is that, you remember that now?
Yes.
Do you remember any more of the lyrics?
No, but you did a very good rendition of what I do remember.
So he's like the monist or the demigod worshiper. You know, what difference does it make? You just ride the subway. You'll get to where you want to go eventually. Ishan sort of agrees that you'll get to where you want to go, but he says it'll take longer. But then I thought of this song by the Lettermen. And they didn't say, and it'll take him longer. No, it says he'll never he's the man who never returned. He may ride the MTA, but he never returned. This guy, at least in the song, he never ever got to where he was going because he didn't know when to transfer from the red line to the blue line. He didn't know what stop to get off on. He didn't care. The information is pretty easily available. You just ask the conductor, or they even have the signs. But he too lazy, too indifferent, and too falsely self-confident to take the trouble to understand what is the process for going from A to B. If you don't do that, it's not just going to take longer. There's a good chance that you're never going to get there. At least we're given 60 or 70 years in the human form of life. And if we don't use them very, very diligently, then our time will run out long before we get to where we need to go. And there's no guarantee that if you don't make the most of this current human form of life, there's no guarantee that you'll get a human life second time around. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean, my dad was actually just showing me a verse in the Bhagavad Gita, 17.4. Yajante satvika devan yaksha rakshami rajasa pretan bhuta ganam chanye yajante tamasa jana. Men in the mode of goodness worship the demigods, those in the mode of passion worship the demons, and those in the mode of ignorance worship ghosts and spirits. Just like you men, right? Like you're still worshiping someone, right? But and worshiping like demigods is better than worshiping demons, which is better than worshiping ghosts and spirits. But that doesn't mean either one of them is good, or that is something that you should do. Just because something's better than something else, it's really just like it's less worse, which is what we see in politics every day, right? Which one's less worse, not which one's necessarily good or better. And I think that's the same thing. You can take multiple paths, and one of them might be better than the other, but none of them are good because you'll be lost no matter which one you take.
It says in the 7th chapter, Kamas tastiri ganaha prapadyatin, tam tam niyamam niyamta ashriya. Men whose hearts are distorted by lust and greed, they worship the demigods and they follow the rules and regulations according to that worship. And the result is satya shadiyoktas tasharan labadeja mayavabi tanitan. They get what they want. They actually get what they want. They get it easily and quickly, but it's not where they need to go. It's not in their best interests. Again, it's like getting on the subway and just being guided by your senses. If you come into a station and there's a picture of a restaurant there with beef and liquor, and then you just let yourself, okay, I'll get off here. It's quick, it's easy. And you think that's what you want, but that's not what you want. When you get on the train, you have to know what is in your best interest and where to go and not be distracted. But if you just get on the subway and say, I'll just wait until I see a billboard or a sign for a restaurant, or I'll see a pretty girl, I'll just be guided by whatever happens, then you'll never get to where you need to go. That's the problem. So Krishna says in the 7th chapter that following their senses, following their material ambitions and appetites, being dominated by the senses and the mind, people easily and quickly get results, but that's not the question. The question is it the result that you're created to get? Is it the ultimate result of returning back home, back to God? And the answer is no. You may never get there if you're guided by your lower faculties. Indriyani parani ho indiyebhapa manasastu parambara yo parampara dashira. Smoke, what is it? Smoke is better than wood. That's true. And fire is better than smoke. That's also true. So you have to discriminate. Before you even get on the subway, before you embark upon your journey, you have to take the time to discern where it is that you want to go, where it is that you're meant to go. And then you have to block out everything else. in order to get there. So that kind of discrimination and determination is available only in which mode?
Goodness.
The mode of goodness.
Goodness. That's the launching pad.
Exactly.
May I interrupt for just a second? I looked up the song.
Is that a joke?
But did he ever return? No, he never returned, and his fate is still unlearned. He may ride forever neath the streets of Boston. He's the man,
who
never
never
returned.
One more. I got it now. One more. This is taking me
But
back.
did he ever return? No, he never returned, and his fate is still unlearned. He may ride
forever neath the streets of Boston.
He's the man, never returned.
So we ask that not be you. You can revolve forever, worshiping this and that demigod in this or that species of life, on this or that planet. Abrahma, Bhuvanalo, Gaur Purnima, every planet from the highest planet of the demigods down to the lowest is a place of birth, death, disease, and old age. It is said that those who worship the demigod are in the mode of goodness, but that's not entirely true either, because the demigods themselves are going to have to die. And the demigods are intoxicated by the heavenly atmosphere of the upper planets. So one must, in fact, go beyond the mode of goodness, not worship the demigods particularly, but worship the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the line of disciplic succession from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yanti Deva Brata Vedan, Pitra Yanti Pitra, Bhutani Yanti Bhuta, Yanti Mad Yigino Pimam. Yanti, those who worship the demigods don't get liberation. They go to the planets of the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors don't get liberation. They go to the planet of the ancestors. Those who worship ghosts and spirits don't get liberation. They go to the planets of the ghosts and spirits. Yanti Majigino. But Krishna says, those who worship me, they come to me. And having gone to Krishna, Yadgatman and Vartate, they never return to this material world. They break the cycle, birth, death, disease, and old age. So that's why we Hare Krishnas are pretty focused.
Yeah, 2 points. So, about a year ago, when I first started reading the Bhagavad Gita, I was talking to Harikesh Prabhu in India, and I was on the verse 2.7, Karpanya Dosho Pahadasubhava, and he said the favorite part of his in this verse is the fact that Arjuna just says Shreyas, right? When he says Yash Shreyasyan Nishitam Bruhitan Me. He does not say Yash Preyas. And the difference between those two Sanskrit words is that Shreyas means what is good for me, and Preyas means what I want. So when Arjuna asks Krishna, he asks Krishna to give him what is good for him, not what he wants or what he feels is good for him. And that's the thing that we should do, is that we should not ask the demigods, or we should not worship the demigods because we want something. Rather, we should worship Krishna because he will give us what is good for us.
What a great point. Yeah. And Shreya and Preya, they also mean, Preyas means short-term goals, like the animals. They immediately want to eat, sleep, mate, and defend. And Shreyas means long-term. The difference between the human being and the animal is that the human being is capable of thinking what's good for me in the long term, whereas the animal is only concerned with the what it needs to survive at the moment. Govinda, you were going to say something? Or sing something?
I just really enjoyed what Ishan just said.
Can you say that once more? I think that's a takeaway. You know, if we can write that down.
Oh, that's two things to write down in 2 weeks. I think I'm on a roll.
You're on a roll.
So if I understand, prayas is what we want, and shreyas is what is good for us, right?
Yeah, I believe that's. This is about a year ago on a phone call with Harike. I think it was Skype actually. So I'm not 100% sure, but
yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So It's 2.7. Karpanya dosho pata svabhava prichami tvam dharma sammurda cheta yashe hasya nishitam bruhi tanme shishyasteham sadimam tvam prapannam. And the line that is in the translation that I wanted to highlight was, in this condition, I'm asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. And the word that is used in Sanskrit to say what is best for me is shreyas, whereas the word in Sanskrit to use what I want or what my short-term needs are, that is prayas. So Arjuna does not ask for Krishna to fulfill his prayas. He asks Krishna to fulfill his shreyas, and shreyas being his what is good for him, what is good for him in the long term, and not prayas, which is what he would like to have in the short term.
Exactly. I think of a pinball. I haven't seen a pinball machine like decades and decades. Do they even have pinball machines anymore? Has anybody ever been in an arcade recently?
No, I mean, the last time I went to an arcade, there was one,
There
but
was one. Okay. So you think of the ball, pinging, binging, 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 binging. And then you kind of like shake the board to continue the run. You don't want the ball to fall into a hole because you're accumulating points as long as the ball is bouncing off of all the posts. Think of souls that have been rotating in the material world since time immemorial, just binging like a ping pong ball here and there. So that's not very difficult to do because it just means surrendering to your unbridled senses, doing what feels good, pursuing the quickest and most easily available fix. But if you want to get out of the material world altogether and go back to the eternal spiritual world, it's not just a matter of doing what suits you. It's not a matter of being whimsical or capricious. There's a very specific path back to home, back to Godhead. The spiritual world is God's home. And so you're not going to get to live in somebody else's home without following their rules and regulations, isn't it? If I tell you, George, I want to go live in your home, looks nice. And every time you've been on Zoom, I like your background, I like your surroundings, I like the lighting, I like the expensive furniture. So can I just go there because I pronounce that? No, what you're going to do is you're going to lay down the rules, aren't you? I mean, you're not just inclined. You'd be out of your mind to just let anybody off the street come and cohabit with you. I mean, that's a potentially dangerous situation. At worst, at best, it could just spoil the whole dynamics of the family circle. But there might be certain conditions under which you would let someone live with you. And you would have to specify what it would take for me to be able to cohabit with you in such a way as you'd be comfortable. So the bottom line is that God is a specific person, the kingdom of God is a specific place, and there are specific guidelines laid down by the Lord, whose kingdom it is, who and how we can get there and live to him. And I'm sorry if that offends, certain category of people who think that yata mata tata pada, whatever you think, that's a path, because that's not confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. That's rejected by Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna is saying, I would like all living beings to return back to home, back to Godhead, but you're going to have to correct the faulty ways of thinking that caused you to leave in the first place. You're going to have to undergo a process of rehabilitation, which starts with chanting Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Hare.
And the thing is, that's where Krishna left it at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, 5,000. But he couldn't just leave it there. He couldn't just leave it there. He then again came as Lord Chaitanya and made the process even more simple. Back to Godhead for dummies. Lord, Lord Chaitanya, Krishna came again, you know. And so we're celebrating the most munificent, merciful incarnation of God on this day. Again, you can catch it online, 5 o'clock tonight in Spanish Fork, 6 o'clock starting in Salt Lake City, or you can go to your own local temple or tune in to Mayapur TV. Today is the day of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All right, we'll touch base with everyone for any final comments, and then George is already in his singing voice. Do you have a Letterman tune that you could do Hare Krishna with? Bye. Could you do Hare Krishna to the tune of "Will he ever return? No, he'll never return. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna."
Hare Krishna.
You think you can do Hare Krishna to the tune of the Letterman's MTA?
Next week.
Rob, what's your takeaway today?
There was a lot in
I
that
don't
today.
care. I don't care what Rob says. I just love the sound of his voice. It's like rolling. It's like rolling thunder on a summer's evening.
Thank you, Prabhu. I'm grateful to Krishna that I can be pleasing to you. Takeaway today. There was a lot in there. Unfortunately, I was not too on point with my note taking. I've been trying to do better, but I'm still learning. I was never a very good note taker.
Did you get for our what is good for us and what we want? Did you get that part of it?
I did not in that part. I've also been having to step away as I get ready to have my son for this weekend. I'm on a little bit of a timeline. I want to make sure I make the festival tonight. So
Well, when all else fails, just chant. Just give us the mantra back.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Excellent, excellent. Govinda, summarization.
Well, here's what I would say. If you want to get to the correct destination, you've definitely got to have a map. And for those who want to get back to the spiritual world, that map is Bhagavad Gita and the teachings of the sages and acharyas, Srimad Bhagavatam. And as you go into this process, I'm going to paraphrase in a very rudimentary way what I think it was Ishan was telling us. It's if you do all those things, you won't always get what you want. You won't always get what you want. But if you try sometimes, you just might find you'll get what you need. That's pretty good. Right? Only if you're using the right map.
Haribol.
All right, let's hear from each one of the Sharmas while Govinda is tuning up his guitar.
The verse gives a comparison of how there's 3 different paths you can take, and how all of them, or how one is better than the other, but that doesn't necessarily make one a good path. And so the only good path is to be instructed by a bona fide spiritual master. In the purport, it describes that, and that's the only way you can go back home, back to Godhead, which is where we need to go, but not necessarily where we want to go.
Nice, short and sweet. Kapil and Shivan, if he's still there.
The same message that we talked about: earth, wood, smoke, and fire. And we want to be fire. As you said, that light, the flame within, I think that's the message. You can't do it on your own. You need a spiritual master. You need the right association. You need the right knowledge that can ignite that spark. And sometimes, through the takeaway, as you gave the example of last evening, it's as simple as empowering others, that I'm there for you. You can ask me a question. Because in our leadership trainings, they always say that there's a lot of pressure on the leaders, because they feel that they need to know everything and need to provide the answers. But the best leaders they don't need to know all the answers. They need to have the right questions. So that's my takeaway.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Jai. All right, so let's wind this up so we can all get ready for Gaur Purnima celebrations this evening, Sunday, March 28th, 2021. Govinda
Krishna.
Dev, Hare Krishna.
Charu, this is going to be crude and rudimentary, but since you asked, I'm going to give this a shot.
Okay, this is what we don't want to be. We don't want to be the man who never returned. We want to be the man who did return back to home, back to Godhead. Just in case anyone's confused on that issue.
Well, I'm not going to sing that. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Outstanding.
Hari Bol.
Outstanding.
Hari Bol. Prabhu, this reminds me.
No hard and fast rules. No hard and fast rules.
Rohit, this reminds me, I think few weeks ago, you gave an example that there are gatherings where the band plays the music, but there's only once when the music plays the band. And today we had that experience.
That also originated with Govinda Dev.
The music plays the band. That's it.
Well, it's suitable that inspiration, creativity is running high on this auspicious day, the Lord Chaitanya's appearance day. Thanks, William and Ali, for being with us. Sorry for the loss of your friend, but we're glad that she was chanting Hare Krishna for the last 2 years of her life. Koki and KK, my old friends from Los Angeles, dropped in. Koki says, Jai Sri Gaur Purnima Prabhuji. Hari Hari Bo. Maybe when the COVID is over, we'll go back to Los Angeles and touch base with some of our friends of 30 years. You know, Koki and Kapila, they have sent a monthly check to support Utah Yatra almost every month for over 30 years. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? That's real loyalty. That's real friendship. Chris de God, thank you, Chris. Is that how you pronounce it? Crise, maybe Chris de God. Thanks for joining us, and Michelle, as well as Jayashree Radhe, and a few others. Let's see who we've got here on the like section. Oh, it's not working. Oh, wait a minute. I have to click this other one. Rajapati Sutta, all the way from Govardhan Echo Village. Thank you for joining us. Nora is part of the Samadhi Vibrations band. She and her husband have played at the Color Fest for a number of years. They play a really upbeat type of Krishna rave music. And all day today, because today and tomorrow is supposed to be the Festival of Colors. They've been posting on their Instagram clips of them playing at our festival in Spanish Fork, Utah. The phone was ringing off the hook yesterday. People wanting to know if the Color Festival was still on, but no, it wasn't. The health department said we couldn't have more than 1,000 people, so we didn't know how we could let 1,000 people in and turn 24,000 people away. So we had no choice but to cancel it. But June 12th, put on your calendar. It's a green light for the festival in Salt Lake City at our temple there. And if you haven't seen the beautiful new temple, put it on your calendar to come. Ron Satyajit Das Conroy, thank you. Ajay Nobula, appreciate your joining us. Anu and her husband, Tyler Morris. Anu and Tyler Morris, thank you so much for joining. Jayashree Radhe, appreciate you. Radhe Sham and Pavana from Twilly. Onkar, what a nice, humble, sweet devotee up there in Salt Lake City. Michelle Grant Blair and Bear Montes. Thank you, all of you, for being with us on Facebook. Rob, appreciate it. Kapil, Shivan, Ishan, Benita, Govinda Dev. Happy appearance day of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Gaur Purnima. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Ram.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama.
Hare
Hare